Hi everybody, and welcome to Astronomy 103 Lab, Summer 2019. This should be a pretty fun course. Now, I will warn you that it is 5 weeks long, so there's kind of a lot to do in 5 weeks. And I think a lot of you are also, everyone who's in the lab, I think is also in the lecture class, and there's quite a bit to do in there as well in these 5 weeks, but it should be fun. So I just wanted to give you an overview of the class and what you're going to be doing in the class. And our class really consists of a couple of different elements. One are laboratories, of course, and these laboratories are laboratories that you will do on your own. You can do them at home. You're going to get a lab kit that has a few things that you'll need to do some of the labs. A lot of the labs are computer driven, meant to teach you to be a sort of hands-on, and to the extent that they can be hands-on, accompaniment to the stuff that you're studying in astronomy lecture. So let's just take a look at the calendar. Let's start there. So here's the calendar for the class. Note that the class starts on Tuesday, May 28th, and pretty much right away we have things on the calendar for you to do. Now, in green are the labs that you need to do. Now, they don't need to be done on this day. This is the suggested day that maybe you complete that lab. Now, that lab is not due until here. So everything that you see in red are things you need to turn in or do. And this lab is not due until the 3rd of June, but this is a suggestion for when you should start thinking about doing the lab. Maybe a good day to do the lab, or at least get started. So you'll see these here as sort of suggested days to start, to sort of spread it out so you're not piling up a bunch of labs all at once. Okay, so our class, we have labs that you do. We have pre-laboratories. Now, Lab 1 doesn't have a pre-lab. So the pre-laboratories are also due on a particular date and time. So you can see if something is due by a particular date, it'll be on that date and it'll tell you when it's due. This is due by midnight. And then the informal report here for Lab 1, and I'll tell you what informal means in a second, is due on June 3rd by midnight. So you can see it'll say due when they're due. Okay, so you can see there's 9 labs. Here's the last one down here. Again, this is a suggested date for when you better get started on that lab. This last one is due here on the 1st of July, which is the last day of class. But I'm giving you also an extra time to turn in your moon project. That's Lab 3. That is a project that you do all, starting on the 6th, all the rest of the 5 weeks. So I'm giving you a little time, but you can feel free to, whenever you're finished, to turn in that lab. But anyway, the structure of the lab is pretty simple. There's pre-labs due on certain days, usually right before the suggested day of doing the lab. So if Lab 2 pre is due on the 2nd, the suggested day to get started on Lab 2 is the 3rd, right? Lab 3 doesn't really have a pre-lab because it's an all 5-week project. But look at this, Lab 4 pre is due on the 9th, and then the suggested day to get started on Lab 4 is the 10th. Okay, so I hope you understand that. Now, what does it mean by formal? So you can see formal here, and informal and formal written. Well, informal are basically just quizzes in Moodle on the material in the lab. So you don't have to hand anything in, but you do have to be prepared to answer questions about that lab. All right. The formal written is more like a formal lab report, and there's information on Moodle about how to write those up. And actually, most of the time, there is a worksheet that you're given where you'll be filling in things in the worksheet. So it'll be very, very clear what that formal written report consists of, and you'll be handing that in via Moodle as well. Okay, let's go take a look at the Moodle page, speaking of Moodle. All right, so here's the Moodle page. Now, the Moodle page you can get to by going to moodle.randolphcollege, right up here, .edu, and signing in with your Randolph College email and password. Now, when you first sign in here, you're going to see this going to look a little different because this is the professor view of this site. There's general class information, there's syllabus, things are hidden from you right now, so I see them, but you won't. So the syllabus, the calendar here, good thing to print out and have next to your computer or on your desk, so you know what's going on and what's coming up. The welcome video that you're watching now is here, obviously. And then the Zoom video conferencing link. So when you click on this, there'll be a link that comes up, and this is what you'll use for all, office hours, etc. It says lab session, but that just means office hours. So any time you need to get a hold of me by appointment or during office hours, you will use this link, right? So if you make an appointment with me, we'll probably use the Zoom video link. Now I also include, here's my email, my office phone, and my cell phone. Now you can feel free to text me if you're having an issue, right? But if you text me pretty late, I'm not probably going to get back to you, at 3 in the morning, etc. So be patient with that. I know you may be working long hours, but I may not be able to get back to you if you text me at 2 in the morning, right? Very soon. Okay, so that texting is fine, but let's look. Each section of Moodle here is a particular lab, and it says suggested day to complete the lab is Thursday, May 30th. That's the same thing that's on the calendar. And basically it says, review lecture 1, and it has several activities that are part of the lab. Okay, so there may be several activities in the lab, and then you may have one of these. So for instance, all of these activities are things that you need to turn in, because if you look over here at lab 1, it's informal, so it consists of things you need to turn in. This is a quiz with a little check mark. That means a quiz, so stuff you need to answer in quiz format. None of these are timed except for the turn-in date, right? So you can start your quiz, let's say you started at this first day of classes, you can take as long as you want until June 3rd by midnight. Okay, so even though they're quizzes, they're not timed like a test might be. There are no tests in this class. Okay, and then there's a questions forum where you can ask questions, and your fellow students might be helpful in answering those. And of course, you can always ask me. So if we look here, this is more typical of a lab. So this is lab 2, and you can see the format where we have the manual, okay, to that lab. We have a pre-activity that's due June 2nd, and then the informal report, which is, in this case, something you hand in, okay? So I hope that's relatively clear. You'll get the hang of this as we go through. All right, let's take a look at grades. How are we grading this class? So that's the next slide. So how we're grading is that the informal labs, those are the quizzes on Moodle, are 30%. Formal written lab reports, there's 5 of those, are 50%, and the pre-labs do count for 20%, so don't ignore those. And it also is a good primer for you, the pre-labs, to start thinking about the lab, and so that you can get started early, which would be good. Okay, well, I hope that you enjoy this class. Welcome to Randolph College, those of you who are not from Randolph College. I hope it to be a fun, hopefully not funny, fun 5 weeks, and probably a busy 5 weeks, but I think you'll learn a lot. Okay, see you in class.